It began with a smile that said everything. When former U.S. President Donald Trump was asked about Queen Camilla during his second state visit to Britain, he chuckled warmly, squinted for a moment, and hesitated, searching for a detail, an impression, a memory. After a pause, he recalled with mild uncertainty that she had worn a dress. Was it pink? No. Perhaps blue. The slip, quickly brushed aside with laughter, spoke louder than any polished diplomatic response ever could. Adorned in jewels and wrapped in a meticulously chosen royal gown. Had certainly been there, but not memorably so. Trump's vague recollection of her attire became the perfect metaphor, dazzling in intention, yet lost amid a moment that belonged not to her, but to others. For while Camilla tried to carve her presence into the event, it was William and Catherine who etched themselves deeply into its story. Across every photograph, splashed on international front pages, from the Windsor procession to the grand banquet at Buckingham Palace, to the effortless exchanges with Trump and Melania, was the Prince and Princess of Wales who stole the spotlight. Catherine's grace, her natural rapport with Melania, and William's steady diplomacy became the lens through which this visit was remembered. Britain, unmatched in pageantry, turned the occasion into a masterclass in ceremonial choreography. The golden carriages, the flawless guard formations, the echo of trumpets welcoming the American delegation. Every detail projected continuity and strength. For Trump, a man who thrives on spectacle, this was more than a diplomatic mission. It was a stage, his stage on which he could marvel at the monarchy's unrivaled power to mesmerize. "No one does ceremony like Britain," he later said. "No one even comes close." Yet beneath the spectacle, the power balance was unmistakable. King Charles, dignified but visibly weary from his ongoing health battles, presided over the occasion with calm authority but without commanding energy. The heavy lifting, both symbolic and diplomatic, fell to William and Catherine. Trump, ever the man of impressions, repeatedly praised William's confidence and Catherine's radiant poise. Their presence was not supporting it, was defining. If one moment captured this shift perfectly, it was the state banquet. Cameras caught what tabloids later called cinematic perfection. Catherine, in a gown of quiet brilliance, Melania, equally graceful. The two sharing an unforced laugh as Trump leaned toward Catherine, animated, relaxed, clearly impressed. Those photographs raced across social media, shaping a narrative no headline could resist. Courtiers had planned for Camilla to shine as hostess, the Queen at her husband's side. But Trump's later comments revealed the opposite. He remembered Catherine's elegance, William's composure, and Charles's solemn presence. Camilla, a polite smile, a blur of color, a forgotten detail beyond the optics. This visit carried real diplomatic weight. William guided discussions toward Anglo-American priority security, climate action, trade in a post-Brexit landscape. Catherine, increasingly recognized as more than a consort, contributed with depth, speaking passionately on education, early childhood development, and women's empowerment. Reports from inside the banquet hall described Trump listening intently as Catherine spoke of humanitarian causes, her words resonating with conviction and purpose. She wasn't merely supporting policy, she was shaping it in a time when King Charles battles illness and the monarchy undergoes a quiet transfer of influence. Trump's glowing praise was a validation that Britain's next generation of royals is not only ready, but already leading. Trump's amused reaction when asked about Camilla wasn't cruel, was telling. The Queen Consort, resplendent in jewels and brocade, had faded into the backdrop of a story starring Catherine, William, and Charles. Camilla's deliberate efforts, her bold gown, her carefully placed media coverage were eclipsed by Catherine's effortless magnetism and William's growing authority. The monarchy, after all, has always been about more than individuals. It's about performance, embodying the nation's narrative in moments of grandeur and diplomacy. And this visit made it abundantly clear where the spotlight now rests. Trump's memory lapse wasn't an insult. It was an unintentional admission of truth. In the theater of modern royalty, some figures simply shine brighter. As he left Britain, praising the monarchy's elegance, calling Catherine so beautiful, and William, a man of great presence, one truth, rang louder than the ceremonial fanfare that future is already here. Camilla's fading impression wasn't a lapse of memory. It was the reflection of a succession unfolding in real time. William and Catherine aren't waiting for history to summon them. They are writing it through handshakes, laughter, and the unspoken respect of world leaders. And as Britain watched those images flash across screens and broadsheets, one message echoed with quiet certainty: the crown's weight is shifting, and the faces that carry it are already in place. Prince William had stepped confidently into the realm of international diplomacy. Gone was the image of a passive heir. Throughout the visit, he was the host, the statesman, the voice of Britain's future. In private talks and public moments alike, he carried himself not as a son waiting in the wings, but as a sovereign in training. The optics spoke volumes. In the official reception line at Buckingham Palace, it was William, not Charles, who extended the first handshake to Trump. During discussions on Anglo-American policy, it was William who spoke with precision and authority, surprising even veteran reporters with his grasp of detail. Security, trade, and climate were at the forefront. Charles offered warm words of continuity, but it was William who steered the conversation toward action. "We may be adjusting our course after Brexit," he said, "but our compass still points to the transatlantic bond." Trump, never one to miss a dramatic cue, responded instantly. "I like that. Strong words. Very strong." Catherine, meanwhile, brought balance. When Trump's focus drifted toward spectacle, she gently redirected it to humanitarian aid. Humanitarian aid, women's roles in peacebuilding. Insiders later recalled that her words weren't mere pleasantries, they carried substance, drawn from her years of work in early childhood and global advocacy. Even Trump paused to agree. That's important. Very important. That moment, subtle yet powerful, marked Catherine's quiet transformation from consort to contributor. She was no longer simply present. She was essential. While William built bridges of strategy, Catherine laid the human foundations beneath them. In contrast, Queen Camilla's presence told another story. Seated beside Trump during a lunch, deliberate placement meant to ensure her visibility, she smiled politely as Trump's attention drifted toward Catherine down the table. Photographers captured it all. Newspapers tried to magnify Camilla's role, highlighting her jewels. Her gown, but the narrative refused to bend. Camilla's effort to project grandeur only underscored how disconnected she appeared. Where Catherine's charm seemed effortless, Camilla's seemed rehearsed. Where William embodied leadership, Camilla remained ornamental, and for a monarchy already mid-transition, the symbolism was unmistakable. King Charles, battling illness, remains the figurehead, but the subtle transfer of authority is underway. This visit made it visible. Trump's repeated mentions of William, his handshake, his confidence, his presence were not coincidence. They were recognition of where real power is beginning to rest. Even Catherine's prominence formed part of that shift. At the banquet, when Catherine and Melania Trump shared a warm exchange, the press didn't treat it as a charming sidebar. It was a diplomatic triumph. The First Lady of the United States and the future Queen of England, laughing together in effortless rapport. It was soft power in motion, the kind that builds goodwill faster than any treaty could. Trump himself underscored the moment, though unintentionally. In a post-visit interview, he raved about the pageantry, the majesty of Windsor and Buckingham, and, above all, the personal warmth of William and Catherine. "They're wonderful," he said. "William's a leader. Catherine so beautiful, so classy. You don't forget that, believe me." When asked again about Camilla, he laughed, then hesitated. "She was nice, very nice. She wore something colorful." The contrast could not have been starker. For the British public weary of political turmoil and economic strain, the visit offered something rare, a reason to feel proud. Through William and Catherine, the monarchy reminded the world of Britain's timeless ability to blend tradition with relevance. Trump's effusive praise merely echoed what millions watching at home already felt. Across front pages and TV panels, consensus emerged. William and Catherine had not simply participated. They had triumphed. Camilla's forgettable presence only amplified the message. In the theater of monarchy, presence is power, and absence, even when visible, is irrelevance. This state visit wasn't the Queen consort's bid for grandeur, it was the Prince and Princess of Wales stepping fully into the roles history is quietly handing them. By the end of Trump's second day in Britain, the outlines of the monarchy's future were unmistakable. Charles remained the sovereign, but William had become the statesman. Catherine the queen-in-waiting, and Camilla the shadow. Trump's laughter, his gestures, and his praise had crystallized what palace insiders had long whispered. The crown's next act isn't waiting in the wings. It's already in rehearsal, and the world is watching. The chandeliers glittered above Buckingham Palace's grand ballroom as the banquet began. Yet it wasn't the crystal or the gilded ceilings that drew global attention. It was the scene at the royal table. Catherine, Princess of Wales, seated just a few places from Donald and Melania Trump, exuded the effortless poise of someone born to lead. Across the hall sat Queen Camilla, cloaked in sapphire silk and weighed down with jewels, playing her part. But as the evening unfolded, the contrast between the two women became not only visible but impossible to ignore. One photograph captured the moment perfectly and went viral within hours. Catherine, radiant in an ivory gown that shimmered under candlelight, leaned toward Melania and Trump, both women laughing naturally. Trump, seated opposite, leaned intuitive and clearly charmed. The next morning, a newspaper headline summed it up in 3 words: Catherine steals the evening. That single frame told the story. While Camilla had labored with her stylists to project regal grandeur as hostess, the spotlight found Catherine instead. Every effortless gesture with Melania became a talking point. Every shared laugh a headline. Even the American press, usually divided in its loyalties, joined the chorus of admiration. The British tabloids, often at odds, were united. The Daily Mail called Catherine the very definition of regal grace. The Times highlighted her measured diplomacy that commanded respect from the American delegation. Even the typically skeptical Guardian admitted the undeniable magnetism of the Princess of Wales. By contrast, the Queen Consort's earnest yet subdued demeanor told another story. Seated beside senior American officials, Camilla fulfilled her formal role with grace, but her presence faded as the night went on. When Trump was later asked about her, his memory betrayed the truth. She wore something colorful, he chuckled, uncertain. His laughter, kind but dismissive, landed like a verdict. For a woman so determined to be seen as queen, to be remembered only as a blur of color was a humiliation no jewel could hide. What made Catherine magnetic that evening wasn't just her beauty, though it was undeniable it was her diplomacy. Observers noted how she steered her conversation with Melania toward shared passions, education, women's empowerment, and the role of mothers in shaping societies. Trump, always alert to energy in a room, listened with visible approval. "That's important," he was overheard saying. People feel that the symbolism was unmistakable. In a hall filled with power brokers and dignitaries, it was Catherine's voice that resonated most with the leader of the world's foremost democracy. In that moment, she transcended the title of Princess. She became a stateswoman, representing not just her family, but her country. Meanwhile, Camilla wrestled with invisibility. Reporters described her as gracious, but peripheral, her gestures rehearsed, her remarks minimal. One photograph caught her glancing across the table as Trump and Catherine shared a laugh, a poignant reminder that no number of diamonds can buy presents. Social media was even harsher. "The Queen Consort looks like she's attending someone else's dinner." One viral comment read. Another said, "The harder Camilla tried, the less she succeeded." Her vibrant gown, meant to command attention, was eclipsed by Catherine's understated elegance. Her prime seat beside Trump, designed for visibility, instead highlighted the polite distance between them. Trump's later confusion blue, or pink, summed up the futility. Camilla had been there, yet forgotten. For the British public, the banquet was more than ceremony, it was revelation. William and Catherine, seated prominently, weren't supporting figures. They were leading ones. Charles, dignified yet subdued, embodied continuity. Camilla, though crowned, seemed out of step with the story unfolding before her. Every frame of that evening carried the symbolism of succession. Catherine's laughter with Melania was not mere friendliness, it was diplomacy in action, the kind that cements alliances beyond speeches. William's poised exchanges with Trump reaffirmed Britain's role as the transatlantic anchor. Together, they projected an image of a monarchy that is not just enduring, but evolving. By the night's end, one truth was undeniable. Catherine was no longer just a consort-in-waiting, she was already performing as queen. William, calm and commanding, was already embodying kingship, and Camilla was struggling to justify her relevance in a world that seemed to be moving on without her. Trump's laughter when recalling Camilla's gown was more than a slip of memory, it was history's verdict. Spoken aloud, the Queen Consort's attempts to shine had been quietly eclipsed by the very figures destined to replace her. Britain, watching the images flash across newsstands and television screens, understood it instantly. The monarchy's next chapter isn't merely coming, it has already begun. Seat by seat, smile by smile, handshake by handshake, behind the glitter of Buckingham's chandeliers and Windsor's grandeur. The truth glimmered through. King Charles III is a monarch in decline. His thinner frame and limited appearances during Trump's visit revealed what palace insiders have long feared. While he greeted the American delegation and raised his toasts, his presence felt more ceremonial than commanding. His battle no longer just against illness, but against time and at nearly every public engagement. One figure stood faithfully by his side, Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, known for her steel discipline and unwavering duty, has become her brother's constant guardian. Observers noted her quiet vigilance, organizing schedules, smoothing delays, shielding Charles from fatigue. To the public, Anne's loyalty was both comforting and bittersweet. She represents the old Gartha, last living link to Queen Elizabeth II's steadfast era, but even her devotion cannot conceal the truth. The weight of responsibility is shifting. Observers describe the Trump visit as a masterclass in managed transition. Charles was majestic. Yes, but William and Catherine carried the true burden of hosting. Their leadership wasn't accidental. Palace insiders confirmed that the king has deliberately begun delegating more authority to his heir and daughter-in-law. Every handshake from William, every diplomatic remark from Catherine, was part of a carefully staged rehearsal for what's to come. Behind the scenes, whispers persist of quiet coronation, drill staff rehearsing procedures, timings, seating plans, and ceremonial logistics for the inevitable day. The public sees elegance and continuity. The palace, however, is already practicing for succession. Even in frailty, Charles strives to project steadiness. His choice to personally welcome Trump against medical advice was seen as an act of duty. In private, he has sought reconciliation within his family, especially with Harry. But even those efforts falter. William reportedly urged his brother to visit their ailing father, an act that could have healed old wounds. Harry's refusal only deepened the rift, leaving Charles dependent on William and Catherine to uphold the monarchy's image. For the British public, the contrast has become unmistakable. Charles, dignified but fragile, embodies the twilight of an era. William and Catherine, strong, admired, and modern, represent its dawn. Trump's glowing praise merely confirmed what was already evident. International recognition has shifted to the heirs. Anne's vigilance at her brother's side is touching, but it's also a reminder. The old guard cannot hold back history forever. By the close of Trump's visit, the narrative was no longer about diplomacy or pageantry. It was about continuity. Britain had staged, in plain sight, a rehearsal for its royal future. Catherine dazzling beside foreign dignitaries, William engaging world leaders with authority, Charles gracious but fading, watching with quiet acceptance. The monarchy has always lived through symbolism, and this visit's symbols spoke volumes. The reign of King Charles is not yet over, but it is already being gently eclipsed. The crown's next chapter is not a matter of if, but when. And in Catherine's laughter, William's steady confidence, and Anne's quiet loyalty, Britain has already glimpsed its future. Asterisk if the American state visit underscored William and Catherine's diplomatic power in the West. The visit of Kuwait's crown prince delivered something even more extraordinary. Public words that seemed to sanctify Catherine as Britain's future queen. In a moment that rippled through diplomatic circles, Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad, heir to one of the Gulf's most influential monarchies, declared, "I will swear on the honor of Kuwait that you are the most beautiful and worthy queen." The remark, made during a toast at Windsor, was not scripted. It wasn't part of the palace's cautious choreography. It was spontaneous, heartfelt, and heavy with symbolic weight for Britain. It was confirmation not only of Catherine's elegance, but of her global stature. For Camilla, it was another reminder of her fading relevance. Those present described the crown prince's words as electrifying. Catherine, ever composed, received the compliment with a modest smile, her eyes flicking briefly toward William before lowering in graceful humility. Yet the moment was indelible. A foreign royal heir representing immense wealth and geopolitical importance had just acknowledged Catherine not as a princess, nor a consort in waiting, but as a queen. Diplomatic commentators moved swiftly. It was more than flattery, they noted it, was recognition that Catherine now operates on the level of a sovereign. Kuwait's crown prince would never speak so boldly without purpose. The British press seized the moment with jubilant headlines. The Queen, the world already seized on contrast. Camilla's presence at the same event was mentioned only in passing, buried beneath photo captions instead of front-page praise, but the Crown Prince did not stop there. In a gesture of profound cultural symbolism, he presented Princess Charlotte with a jewel-studded box crafted by Kuwaiti artisans. Inside lay a delicate gold charm in the shape of a falcon, the national emblem of strength and honor. As he handed it to her, he said softly, "She carries the spirit of her great-grandmother, Elizabeth. In her, I see the posture of a future leader." The remark, directed toward a 10-year-old, stunned the court. Princess Charlotte, already beloved in Britain for her composure, was suddenly linked by a foreign dignitary to the legacy of Elizabeth II. The symbolism was immense. Charlotte was no longer just William and Catherine's daughter. She had become the living bridge between the monarchy's storied past and its radiant future. Observers noted three key moments that defined Catherine's orchestration. Of the Kuwaiti visit, the heritage tour, Catherine personally guided the Crown Prince through Windsor's historic halls, narrating stories of continuity and sacrifice. Her pride in Britain's legacy was not rehearsed, it was heartfelt, giving the tours the weight of statecraft. The Women's Forum, at a private roundtable, Catherine emphasized the monarchy's support for women's education and empowerment. Diplomats later admitted her insights were as substantive as those of any cabinet minister. The farewell walk. At the visit's close, Catherine joined the Crown Prince in the Windsor Gardens, speaking quietly about balancing tradition with service. Courtiers described the exchange as quietly historic, a glimpse of her ability to turn hospitality into diplomacy. Each moment reinforced her image, not as a supportive consort, but as an architect of Britain's soft power. Camilla, meanwhile, once again struggled for visibility. Despite her title, she played no meaningful role during the Kuwaiti visit. Palisades had hoped her literacy charities might find a place in the program, but no such opportunity emerged. Photographs captured her standing politely at the periphery of receptions, but irrelevant. Trump's earlier lapse of memory had been embarrassing. The Crown Prince's deliberate coronation of Catherine was devastating. One diplomat put it plainly, "When the world looks at Britain, they see Catherine, not Camilla." That is the reality now. The Kuwaiti Crown Prince's remarks carried deeper resonance. Charles, battling illness, has embodied the monarchy's endurance through uncertainty. Yet here was a foreign leader acknowledging the inevitability of succession, praising not the present, but the future. His gift to Charlotte only underscored the point. The monarchy's vitality rests with William, Catherine, and their children, not with Camilla's fading grandeur. The palace, cautious as ever, downplayed the exchange. The official communiqué simply thanked Kuwait for its friendship and generosity. But the images told a different story. Catherine radiant, receiving recognition as queen awaiting. Charlotte glowing, holding a gift that linked her to Elizabeth II. Camilla blurred in the background. For the British public, these scenes struck a deep chord of pride. A monarchy often tested in recent years had, for a moment, reclaimed its shine. The Crown Prince's oath and his symbolic gift were not mere gestures, they were validation. Britain's future queen had been acknowledged, its young princess honored, its royal legacy reaffirmed on the world stage. Camilla's absence from that narrative only sharpened the truth. She may hold the title, but the world has already chosen its symbol. Catherine is the queen in all but name. And Charlotte, the heir to Elizabeth's spirit, embodies the monarchy's promise. Renewed by the time the Kuwaiti motorcade departed Windsor, Britain's royal future had never seemed clearer. William and Catherine had hosted with authority, received praise bordering on coronation, and watched their daughter be compared to the late queen herself. The monarchy, for all its fragility, was alive with purpose. Yet beneath the triumph lingered a quiet ache, the fracture within the family itself. Those close to the Prince of Wales confide that behind his commanding presence. William still carries one unfulfilled hope. reconciliation with his brother. Sources say he urged Harry to return during their father's illness, believing the gravity of the moment might heal old wounds. William's plea was simple: come home, sit with him, share the burden. But Harry declined, citing other obligations. The rejection cut deeply. For William, the call was not about duty, it was about family. For Harry, now firmly rooted in California, it was a bridge too far. Trump's visit had proven the Wales's global stature beyond question. Harry's absence only magnified the gulf between responsibility embraced and responsibility abandoned. King Charles remains, for now, the monarch. His efforts to project stability, even as illness tests him, are noble. Princess Anne's steadfast presence by his side is moving. But it also underscores how much he now depends on her strength. Britain respects Charles for his decades of service, but increasingly, its gaze turns toward William and Catherine. The quiet rehearsals whispered through palace halls, the timings practiced. The ceremonial steps repeated are no longer speculation, but necessity. Charles himself, it is said, understands this. The monarchy's survival lies not in preserving the present, but in preparing the future, and no vision of that future exists without Catherine. Across both the American and Kuwaiti visits, she has emerged as the monarchy's true anchor, whether guiding foreign leaders through Windsor, sharing warm laughter with Melania Trump, or receiving a royal oath from Kuwait. Catherine embodies a modern crowned, dignified, yet human, powerful, yet kind. For a Britain weary of division and doubt, she has become more than a princess. She is reassurance itself, the living proof that the monarchy can still inspire. And Camilla, once determined to stand as Charles's indispensable partner, she now fades quietly into the backdrop. Trump's forgetful remarks about her gown were a symbol. The Kuwaiti crown prince's silence, a verdict. The harder she tries to project herself, the more she disappears behind the brilliance of the Waleses. The public sees it. The press records it. The world acknowledges it. Camilla is receding into the shadows of history, eclipsed by those destined to define it anew. The story of these visits is not merely diplomacy, it is transformation. Charles represents continuity and duty. Camilla, William and Catherine, the future. Their children, George, Charlotte and Louis, carry the bridge between Elizabeth II's legacy and the monarchy's next century. William's longing for reconciliation with Harry may remain unanswered, but the crown's destiny no longer depends on it. Its strength lies in inspiration and, on that measure, the Wales family has already prevailed as the palace gates closed behind Kuwait's departing entourage. One truth lingered in the autumn air. Britain had not just displayed its grandeur, it had revealed its future. William, statesman and sovereign in wait, Catherine, Charlotte, heir to a timeless legacy. The monarchy's next chapter is not approaching, it has begun. And in its opening lines, one figure is missing. Her image blurred, her memory uncertain. For all of Camilla's jewels, it is Catherine's smile, William's steady hand, and Charlotte's promise that carry the story forward.